All right, welcome to another episode of Have a Go with Corey Cheeky. First female guest on ever. Episode 16 too.
Oh, wow.
We have Arlene Angerfist Blencowe, a professional. Did I say that right again?
Yeah.
I
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you got it right, Blencowe.
Said it right. Nailed it. Actually had to edit one out just before. So I'll rattle off a couple stats here. 2 times boxing world champion. Signed to the Bellator. One of the first females from Australia to sign to Bellator.
First.
The first,
Yeah.
very first. Wikipedia should update that.
Apparently I'm a millionaire too.
Oh, yeah?
Yes, to them. I'm like, I haven't been paid that yet.
So, yeah, one of the first to sign with Bellator, or the first to sign with Bellator. You're currently ranked number 3 in the world for your weight class across...
I actually think it's number 4. But
number 4?
Yeah,
we'll
okay.
go on number 3. Wikipedia can leave that, is it? So that's across UFC, Bellator, everything, MMA. That's across
in
the
the world, yep.
And also seen as well most appearances in Bellator, is that right?
Yep.
And then tied for KOs or
Yep.
stoppages.
Yep.
Why fighting, Arlene?
Oh, you forgot one of my stats.
Where's the other stat?
Like the fastest female finish.
22 seconds.
Yes.
Yes, I did. I just seen that just before you came in, actually. Who was that against?
Amanda Bell.
Yeah, I seen that. I was
Yeah.
showing one of the coaches here at the gym and one of the girls, and she's like, holy shit.
I did.
Just pumped her. Absolutely pumped her, eh?
I didn't expect that to happen. It was like the first, a lot of punches, and I was like, oh, okay, and then nice and quick.
So, yeah, like, what got you into fighting, Arlene? Like,
Here's $1 million question.
$1 million question. Have you always, like,
I've always been, this is what I sort of say to all the young girls that I talk to now, like this generation, day and age, the girls are so lucky. Like, they can play tackle football, fighting's it's not out of the norm to see a girl in a martial arts gym kickboxing or boxing, whereas back when I was younger, footy was for the boys. The closest thing I got onto a rugby field was playing touch or league tag. So if it wasn't boxing or fighting, it probably would have been tackle footy for sure. But yeah, so I was always a bit of a tomboy, always given from that.
Where'd you go up?
Gympie, Queensland.
Queensland.
Yeah. And I always thought, I was a bit of a tough girl. I was always sticking up for my sister when we were younger. I'm half Filipino. And she used to get picked on. She had like olive skin and, picked on and teased for having dark skin. We lived in a rural country town, and we were the the only family with a non-Australian sort of mum. So my mum was Filipino and my dad was Australian. So it was different to what I guess all the other families were like in that small country town. And she got picked on a little bit. So I was just always felt like I was sticking up for her, and I remember getting into fights in the toilet at school. Girl said this to my sister, or this and that. So and then just kind of it was always an interest. And then like years later, it got introduced into the Olympics. New South Wales lifted the ban. Females were allowed to compete here in New South Wales, and it just all sort of coincided with. Being 26, at that time I became a single mum. I had been in a long-term relationship with the children's father, and life revolved around being a mum, being a housewife, and that was all good. Like I was happy with that at the time, but then sort of when that gets taken away from you, you sort of sit back and think, what have I done with my life other than being a provider for other people? I haven't really done anything for myself. And it just the Olympics was something that I wanted to do, represent Australia. Looking at sort of things that I wanted to do as a child, watching State of Origin, even representing New South Wales was a big thing. Like just watching the State of Origin, listening to Tina Turner's Simply the Best, it just used to get me pumped.
So you said represent New South Wales?
Yeah.
Didn't you grow up in Queensland though?
Oh yeah, I was born in New South Wales.
Born in New South Wales.
Yeah. So
you're going to say yes, converted vote.
No, I was born in New South Wales. We moved to Queensland when I was, I must have been a year old, because my sister was, there's 14 months between us. So she was born in Queensland. Right, so it was funny. And my mum used to go for New South Wales too, because it was the first city we lived in Manly. So she went for New South Wales, and so did my dad. So she was the only Queenslander. And we lived in Queensland though. So it was always fun State of Origin time. she'd go to bed sooking. It was back then New South Wales used to win, but
they're coming back now. Back.
They had a bad stint there for a long, long time, didn't they?
11 years, I think it was.
Oh, it was terrible.
Lost a few bets, definitely. Yeah. So you mentioned like your first partner then, you started boxing at the age of 26, and you were a mother, and went through like a little bit of a rough trot there, like you shared anything there?
Well, I'd met the kid's dad when I was 13. He was 14, so we were together at a young age. Prior to that, though, I'd already ran away from home. Was skipping school, doing this. I was already on the path to going down the wrong track in life. That's when I met his family. I guess for the most part, they put me back in school. I finished my HSC and this and that, but funny enough, I guess his family was actually on the wrong side of the law anyway. So I guess it was I wasn't on the streets doing the wrong thing in that sense, but we were living on the wrong side of the law in another sense anyway. So so we spent 13 years together. We were in a volatile relationship. He was a very controlling man. And controlled a lot about my life too. And it wasn't until, when we broke up at 26, that was a big turning point for me, because it was sort of made me sit back and think about what I wanted to do as a mum for my children. It wasn't the lifestyle that I wanted to bring them up around. I didn't want them, visiting jails and, spending their weekends visiting family members in jail and being brought up around the drug scene. And, I wanted them to have more for their life. And I feel like at 26, I was sort of, approaching 30, which is when most people sort of start looking back at it, like looking at their life, because at 30 you think, you should have your shit together. And at 26, I was, far from that. I had 2 kids and, had no career as such. I finished my HSC, but I never followed it. I was 17 doing my HSC when I fell pregnant with our daughter. So I had her, I started a uni degree, but then when I had her, that just went out the door because I was just in love with being a mum. It takes over. It's hard. Obviously, looking back now, if I had have thought about things better, I probably would have tried to juggle things, but at that moment I was just happy being a mum and living for the then, rather than thinking of the bigger picture of what life has in store. You think that life's going to go forever, but the years just really do fly by. I'm at 37 now, and it's like, holy shit, I'm approaching 40, which I'm definitely a lot happier. When I was 26 asking those questions, approaching my 30, I'm definitely a lot happier at 37, asking those questions now, approaching 40. So, but long story short, I've made the most of the last 11 years. And
you sure have. But done pretty good.
Yeah, not even obviously on the sporting side of things, but what that's done for my personal life in, everything. I'm just sitting in a really good spot now, and I feel like it's goal achieved, especially when I look at my 2 kids and, where we are all in life at the moment.
That's unreal, especially, to get stuck in that, say a cycle, like you said, it's a bit of a volatile situation, and to be able to, being 26, that's pretty young to realise, you know what I mean? I think back when I'm 26, I was an immature idiot still, probably still am, but, what was the thing that sort of clicked for you? It was like, all right, this is it, I've got to do something. What was the inspo behind that?
Oh, definitely hitting rock bottom. Rock bottom, in a place in life that I never want to find myself again. And, just at that stage, the kids, looking at the kids and just wanting to be with them and just be their mum and have the kids look at me as being a good positive role model, the mum that they're proud of, and, being the person that I hope that they look at me right now, and I know that they are. And they probably would have been back then too. At the end of the day, the kid, but I know within myself, I wasn't happy with the person that I was. And
you knew you had more.
Definitely. I'm educated too. I could have been anything I wanted to be, and I've always been gifted like physically as well. Like I was always, the fastest kid on the athletics track, the best, player on the netball court. Like in saying that, we grew up in a small country town, so it was kind of wasn't hard to be the best. But in saying that, I always made like, regionals and then, a few times state in like the sport that I was playing. So, I was always just had that drive to be the best. And, in all areas of my life now, I've got that same drive as well. So it just felt like I was a waste, so I'm glad that I didn't waste it.
Your kids must look at you now and be heaps proud, like, especially like to see where you are now. They're probably young; they wouldn't remember too much, would they? Or have they ever mentioned anything to you? As like,
it's not so much me; it's listening to bits and pieces that I hear when they say things like, if I'm. They'll say it to their friends and stuff like that, or like their friends' parents will come up and be like, oh, Keon's, like my son will say this, but even like nice things, Mother's Day cards and it obviously for the kids it's all they've ever really known, in a sense that my daughter was 8 when I first started, so she went through that stage of being like a little mini me. She'd get her hair braided and she'd walk around in gym clothes and stuff like that. And now it's funny because she's the complete opposite. She's more my academic one. So, she was with me all weekend and I'm pretty sure she didn't get her nose out of a laptop because she was working on a uni assessment. So, I put a story up on my Instagram. I'm sitting there watching my son's semi-final for soccer and then I'm like recording her. She's sitting there at a soccer field with a laptop.
Actually,
and I'm
I've
like,
seen that.
Chalk and cheese with my kids. But in saying that, it just, makes me super happy that, my son's absolutely killing it on the soccer field at 12, and even coaches now they see big things in him already. And then my daughter's killing it at uni. Like she's she's working, and not even that, just in life in general. Like she's 19 and she's already got a savings plan in place to build her own house and just stuff like that. And I look at her and think, shit, I was, I had her at 18 and wasn't thinking past that day, let alone the future. So whether or not they give me credit for that, I don't need credit, because as a parent, you don't need, them to sit there and say, oh, thanks, Mum. I know that they're grateful, but for me, it's like, job done, even though it's not finished, and you keep going. But for the most part, I'm super proud of both of them and
that's unreal.
The people that they
Good
are.
on you.
Yeah.
So obviously transition into after that, then you started your fighting. Yeah. 26? You said, was it?
Yeah,
26?
I had my first amateur fight at 26.
So from that experience, do you feel like you used a lot of that? Like your name's Angerfist. Do you have a bit of build-up anger? Is that like the reason? It was like a good way to vent? And
for sure. I think, and again, like I'm doing a lot of, I like to mentor people where I can. I was actually even speaking to Jamie, he's now got me into mentoring youth as well. So I've got a few girls that I'm seeing this week. But it's just, sharing my experiences and how I got through things. And, everyone gets through things differently. I was lucky that for me, I was trying to turn my life around, but I had such a positive outlet within my training. And, it's always good to be able to throw a set of boxing gloves on. You can channel your anger in that sense. But for me, it was obviously getting fit, fighting and that. But as I say to other people, like, you might find that same passion in something else that can help you get out of it. It doesn't have to be fighting. Exercise is always a great one because of obviously the endorphins and everything. You feel good after a session, which obviously makes you feel good. And then, positive things comes from that. But, it was a long road. That's what, even because I'm in fight camp now for the biggest fight of my career. And I feel like I'm sort of looking back over the last 11 years a lot, where I started. Even looking at the kids, Kian was still in nappies when I was first training, and I was juggling, rocking up to a gym and having their dinner in Tupperware containers, their homework and their pajamas. They'd be sharing at the gym so that when we got home, they were just all stuff like. Whereas now it's easier, but I just reflect back on all of those things. Or even where I'm coaching, like I'm training here now in Sydney, and I've got the best coaches in the world. I feel right here, and they're coaching me and they're dedicating so much time. Like even. Jamie's my head coach, but, on the weekend I went down to Alex Volkanovski's gym, and even his coach, Joe, then put a session together for me based on the session, like the sparring session, things that I need to work on. So I've just got so many coaches that are here helping me, whereas in the early days, which I'm grateful I had coaches that helped me back then at the stage that I was at, but I've just grown so much from them, like since then.
Was that always, when you started, when you were 26, was like, that's it, I'm going to be world champ? Or was it just, I'm going to train and see what I get out of this?
No, it was always like, I had this joke with my first coach, because you see it all the time here now, and people will walk into a gym and they'll be like, especially after, like, say, Conor McGregor or something's fought on the weekend, and next minute, on the Monday, people walk in there like, I want to be the next Conor. I want to, like, coaches hear it all the time, I want to be this, and you just think, okay, what a dick. Like, they don't realise, like, how much hard work. But, I walked into a gym and did that. I walked in and was just like, I'm going to represent Australia at the Olympics.
So that was the first goal.
Yeah, that was my first goal. And then my coach at the time, he said, like, I still remember he was sitting behind the counter on his laptop. And he's like, all right, then we've got training on Monday. So, I rocked up to training on Monday. And then he just said he saw something, like, from the beginning. And even now, like, when I look at, especially females or even newbies first starting out throwing punches, and you look at them and you think, oh, God. And then I'm like, I always ask, did I look like that? And they're like, no, you completely skipped that stage. I'm like, oh, good.
So you obviously won a couple of boxing titles. Why transition into MMA?
Just because there's just not that much competition here, like, especially for me. So I won those 2 world titles in my 3rd professional fight.
Yeah, how many boxing fights did you had? It said 4 on there. Was that right?
No, I've had 9, but and I had a heap of amateur fights too. But I actually won those boxing world titles while I was in fight camp for an MMA fight.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I just took it on a week's notice because the opponent pulled out, and I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And then, we came back, I was like, oh, shit. So I didn't even have a whole preparation. Like, 1 week I was training for an MMA fight. The next weekend I'm in New Zealand fighting for 2 world titles, win them, and then came home, and then I was like, oh, shit, I've got to keep training for my MMA fight. So it was like, it
didn't get to enjoy it, really? It was
well,
just
not really. I didn't celebrate. Like, and it's one of the things, and I've been chasing that world title ever since. Like, took some silly boxing fights in different weight divisions when I should, just a bit of an amateur decision early on in my professional boxing career. And then more so now I focus on, obviously, MMA because that's just where I'm active. Being signed to Bellator too, it's like, it's the 2nd largest promotion in the world, and they look after me. And to be fair, I get paid so much more money than what I do for boxing. Like, I haven't really made much money, and even as a world champion, it just, a bit sad, really.
So the 2nd largest promotion, Bellator, what is first UFC? Or is that what? Daniel was saying 1 championship. What does
that's
that
getting pretty big too.
That's pretty big in Japan, mainly.
Yeah. Bellator, I mean, Bellator would be the 2nd largest just out of, like, viewing stuff. But UFC is a household name.
Yeah.
But they're getting up there, and I guess because you can screen fights, like, it's not like you have to physically go there. So, like, there's more people viewing those things now. I don't think one championship was never an option for me because, I mean, I'm probably about 20 kilos heavier than any of the fighters that fight on there. I think probably heavier than most of the guys that fight on there too.
So with UFC Bellator, do you ever have aspirations? Oh, was that a lightning strike or something? Have aspirations to go to UFC, or you've always just thought, no, I'm going to stay with Bellator? What's the decision between that? Like,
to be fair, when I got signed with Bellator, MMA was still my side sport. Like, I still wasn't even taking it. Like, when I first had my first few fights, I wasn't taking it serious because it was all about, especially because I was already a champion boxer, that was where my focus was. I was just trying to keep active between, like, boxing fights. And then I got signed to Bellator, and I was still taking it as, like, I'll do it. Like, I'm not doing anything else. And then it wasn't until we flew over there I sort of realised how big of a deal Bellator was. Like, it was obviously very, very professional compared to the local shows I'd sort of fought on here. Like, it's big. And then when I started, obviously, climbing the world rankings, I was inside the top 10, and I was, sitting at number 6 and 7 there for a while. And I was like, shit, I'm inside the top 10. And so I did I got signed with a 4-fight contract, and then, we were sort of thinking about the idea of going to the UFC. At that time, my coach was, big on the idea of getting me to the UFC. So I think he liked the idea maybe a little bit more than I did. But then in saying that, like, it's, in my head, I was like, well, that's a pinnacle. You should always be wanting to reach the top. Like, thinking that the UFC was the pinnacle of the sport.
Is that just because the brand awareness?
I think so, because, like, even now, I'm so glad I stayed on my path, because one of the biggest things, and I said this in another podcast, is, like, loyalty. So, Bellator signed me when my record was 4 wins, 5 losses. 5 wins, 4 losses, which is still, like, not great. Like, you think, it's not terrible, but yeah, usually to get signed to like international promotions, you've either got like, a pretty out there record and stuff like that. My obviously being a world champion boxer and stuff like that, and the fact that I had good striking worked in my favour. But they took, and me being the first Australian female signed, so they took a leap of faith signing me. Like, it's a big thing for an American promotion. Like, every time I fly over, they got to fly me and my corner all the way from Australia. It costs them more money than just having a local fighter. So they believed in me from the beginning. They looked after me. And then, I ended up signing a second contract, and they've just continued to look after me. So it's like now, with Cris Cyborg coming from the UFC, like that would be the only reason that I would have gone over to the UFC was to chase the big fights. And it's like I stayed true to my course and stayed loyal to them, and, as a thank you. And now the fight's presented itself over in front of me.
So is that 100% that fight going ahead?
Well,
because wasn't it from what I read at the start of the year that was just before COVID? Was that right? That was in the works of maybe happening.
Yeah.
Or?
Well, after Cyborg beat the former champ Julia, Scott Coker, who's the president of Bellator, said in an interview, a press conference, that, I'm next in line. I'm the number one contender, which we knew that because I've won 3 in a row, and I put myself in that position. But in saying that, I also wasn't going to be dirty on the fact that if somebody else got signed, I knew that my time would be coming. I just had to keep, focusing on whoever they put in front of me. But anyone that's paying attention to the Bellator scene on the featherweight division now, everyone's matched and announced to have matched, except for me and Cyborg.
Oh, yeah.
So, I just, waiting for that announcement. We've been literally training. So my last fight was November last year against Leslie Smith, and we knew that fight was happening. So we've been training for Cyborg. And to be fair, you train for Cyborg, you can beat anyone else after that in that division. You know what I mean? So we've been preparing, tactics and saying that still stay on our course, because MMA is a sport where you need to be training everywhere. So it's not like you really focus on any one thing. So we've just been, grinding it out since January through COVID, through the reopening, and still going 9 months later.
It's taking ages, eh? Well, is that a good thing, like for your training prep? If you're getting more reps in, is that, or would you rather it just came around quicker?
I'm ready to get it done now. I was preparing, and this is another thing I was sort of answered a little while ago. Like 2020 has just been a crazy year with COVID. I'm in a really good place mentally and physically to fight for this world title now. But in saying that, there's so much else going on in the world at the moment. People are dying and businesses are closing down. And it's just a bit, so for me to sit here and sulk that I'm not having a fight this year, it seems like pretty petty compared to all the shit that's going on. So I was ready just to, and I'm a big believer in, things happen for a reason, and timing in your life and this and that. So if the fight didn't happen this year, there was a reason for it. And I'll just keep plodding along the way. But it's happening this year, and I'm very grateful because it's not going to be a write-off of a year, and
Well, that'll be a good notch on your belt, eh, Cyborg? She's known to be one of the most dominant. Is that right?
She's the baddest woman on the planet. Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of talk at the moment because she left the UFC. Amanda beat her.
She's a weapon, eh?
She's a weapon too. But to be fair, if you watch that fight back, either one, whoever landed, they were both swinging big. So it was. Obviously she just got caught, and she got exposed too. She's never had her chin tested because everyone's been scared of her. So it's good to know that, she goes down. She's just human, and that was, I'm taking a lot of comfort in that. Because, at the end of the day, we're all human. Well,
that's your specialty too, striking.
I was talking to Ty last night, and he's like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, if all else fails, just stand there and trade. I mean, so I'll either knock her out or get knocked out. It's obviously we're going in with a bit more of a plan than that. But, my fallback is just to stand and throw. So it's at least it's not to stand and curl up or whatever. It's just my instinct to throw back, and I guess that's probably why I get Angerfist.
Did you give yourself that name? Who gave you that?
Oh, it's funny. It came years ago in my amateur boxing career. I fought on a fight night. So normally, like when you fight at like PCYC events or nationals, and you don't have walkout songs, but if you fight at a fight night, they'll let you play music and that. And I had this Angerfist mash. It was like this sort of techno heavy metal type song, and then it went into like Eminem saying, "Hi, my name is," and then it went back to Angerfist, and that had a Roy Jones Jr. Like, it was just a mix of all different songs, like a mashup. But when Eminem says like, "Hi, my name is," and then just yells like Angerfist, and then my girlfriend, she was just like, "Oh, that'd be really cool for you," and I was like, "Oh, I don't know, Angerfist, it's a bit," and then I started my MMA career, and I was like, you know what? Like, it's funny because I'm coming from a boxing background, so my fists are obviously what is my strength. And then if you look at any video footage, it looks like I'm throwing angrily. And then the fight will finish and I'll be all smiles again. So, but yeah, so Angerfist is just, I thought about rebranding. It was funny, it was probably about 3 years ago I was looking at rebranding, just because avenues that I want to go down after fighting, with my brand. Angerfist doesn't, like, especially because I'm getting into mentoring and motivational speaking and all that sort of stuff. Like, Angerfist was a little bit of a deterrent. But then I realised that if you're already interested in me talking at an event or, using me as a mentor, this and that, you already know what I'm about. So, Angerfist is my name.
I guess, like, I think it's good that you don't change that.
Like, well, I can't now because I feel like it's...
Like, because that's like what you said, that's who you are, and that's like you in the ring.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you have
the
to...
bipolar version of me. I'll ask my partner that. He's like, he's most definitely bipolar.
So, any news of when that's going to go ahead? Like, any dates thrown up or anything with the Cyborg fight?
Yeah, we're just waiting. It's all happening, but it's just... waiting. Bellator.
Bellator, have they had fights on?
Yeah. They've actually got a double back-to-back card this weekend. So it's exciting because I'm watching all the girls. Like, this weekend I've got, except for Kat Zingano, but Gabby Holloway, I fought her on my third MMA Bellator fight. She's fighting Kat Zingano. So Kat's the one that beat Miesha Tate. Like, she used to be in the UFC. So it's her first fight for the promotion. Two of my opponents last year, Amanda Bell and Leslie Smith, they're fighting each other. All the featherweights are sort of fighting each other. So, I think we'll be soon. I know that Bellator are actually signing a new TV deal, which will allow for more, hopefully, easier viewing here in Australia.
Yeah, because it's only online, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you don't really hear about it here in Australia.
Yeah. It's hard too because, like, you can watch the prelims on the Bellator app, but then the main event you've got to stream. So everyone I know that watches it, like, illegally watches it. So I'll post that on my social media for you guys. But it's hard because you want to, like, I know this fight here, hopefully, it comes about and we can announce it soon, but I want Australia behind me because it's massive. It's
a massive fight.
Yeah.
That's like...
Well, it's the biggest...
That's crazy.
Oh, sorry. It's the biggest, women's MMA fight in history for an Australian. So, like... And then, obviously, we've got later on in the year Megan Anderson, who's Australian, fighting Amanda Nunes. So that's massive too. But, like, it's big for females in general. Like, I know we've already had, Rob Whittaker's, the former champion, Australia got behind him, and Alex is the current featherweight champion, Australia got behind them. But, like, get it out there because it's not the norm. Like, I'm a female fighter in a male-dominant sport, and I'm more than just a fighter too, though. Like, I'm a mum, and I juggle everything else in my life. Yeah,
see, that's, I guess, where the UFC would probably... Because of their brand,
that's, for sure.
That's sort of unfortunate.
Yeah.
Like, with Bellator not being so prominent here in Australia.
Yeah. No, I previously have been a little bit lazy with all of this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I focus on my training and obviously home life and everything, which usually keeps me super busy, coaching, working a full-time job, this and that. So it's like, I don't have time, but this time I'm making the effort. So I'm doing, 3 or 4 podcasts a week now, and just setting time aside to build my brand. I've got a manager on board that can help me here with the media side of things here in Australia, and just getting me out there.
Yeah, it's good because, like you said, fighting Cyborg, it's crazy. And for what you've done already as well, you got a pretty good record, you said.
Well, this is
build
it.
Up.
Everything happens for a reason. it's funny because Cyborg had just come over from from the UFC to fight Julia. But if she didn't do that, then I was next in line to fight Julia for the title anyway. But I wouldn't have got paid as much as what I'm getting paid to fight Cyborg, and it wouldn't have been as big as like everything. Yeah, in time and life, like has happened at the right time. Like there was, an opportunity for me to possibly fight Cyborg back in 2017. She was trying to get me signed to the UFC so we could fight because she was looking for opponents. But I'd only just re-signed with Bellator, so I was already in contract. And, so our paths didn't, it literally was 2 weeks. We missed each other.
So would have you probably went to the UFC, you reckon, then?
Well, yeah, because I was already, that was another, there's been 3 times throughout my career where the opportunity to go over. And, that was one of them, and we were sort of unsure. But, it just didn't feel right. Then Bellator came back and offered me a really good contract. So, at that time, I'd actually had 2 fights outside of Bellator, out of contract, while we sort of decided what we were doing. Because I sit in the option to sit in 2 weight divisions. I can fight as a bantamweight and a featherweight. So, it leaves me, more opponents to fight. And then, Bellator came back and wanted to sign me and, offered me a good contract. And we were like, okay, this feels right. And, I'm glad I did. And then, 2 weeks later, found out that. And I was just like, oh, really? But looking back now, there is no way that I would have been ready to fight her back in 2017. Like, at the time, I thought I would have been, and I would have got in there and, fought her. But looking at how much I've grown, this is the time to be fighting her. And even, who I've got as coaches now and, training partners and where I am mentally. And, definitely now's the time.
Now's the time. Game on. Game on. You mentioned there 2 weight classes. I'm always fascinated by the weight cuts. How do you go doing that? Do you progressively do it over your camp, or it's
Well, I'm actually light, so I normally walk around at anywhere between 70 and 73 kilos, just depending on how active I am outside of fight camp and that. But and I fight at 66 kilos, which is featherweight. So my
it's not too bad,
no,
is it?
I generally only walk around no more than 5 kilos off weight. But in saying that, my walk around weight is what Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey walk around to fight at 61. So they progressively come down. So I'm small for a division. Putting things into perspective, Cyborg walks around at 78, 79 kilos to cut to 66, which just means that their 8-week fight camp, they have to progressively come down. So at the moment I'm walking around 71 kilos, and then this is the first fight camp though that we are going to look at bringing me down so that I don't have to worry about weight cutting. I've got a dietitian and a nutritionist on board that's providing me with all my meals. Usually I just eat to fuel my body. Well, I used to think I was fueling my body, but now that I've actually got a professional on board, it's like, oh shit, I was doing everything wrong. Even my weight cut weeks, back in the day when I fought at 61 kilos a few times, and what I thought was right or doing the right thing, wasn't really the right thing, and I could have made things so much easier for myself, even though I thought it was easy compared to early days when I do 8 hours in the sauna and this and that. Stop drinking.
8 hours.
Yeah,
Jesus.
for my world title fight, I cut to 63.5 for that one, but. But in saying that, stopped eating a week. It was just, when I look back at it now, it's super dangerous. And it took actually one of my boxing fights to get dropped and take an 8 count, and in the first round of a 10-round title fight. I continued the rest of the rounds, but it was a good 3 months after that. I was super vague, and there's no way I'd be able to do these podcasts because I'd be midway through talking and then I'd forget what I was talking about.
And has that got to do with your weight cut and that as well? Just your body being depleted?
Just being that dehydrated, no water on the brain, and just, So after that fight, my coach at the time just said, no more dangerous cuts. We're not, So, that was a big turning point for me because, at home with my kids, we'd be preparing dinner and then I'd be talking to them about something and then I'd sort of turn to the fridge and get something out, get that out, obviously concentrate on whatever I'm getting out, forget that we're talking, turn back and they're both sitting there looking at me. And, so it's not like when you're a mum too, anybody should be like that, but, it's not just my health too. I need to make sure that I'm around for my kids and also able to string a sentence together when I'm older.
Have you never had any scares like that again? Has that just been from that? And
Yeah. The one time, the only time I've ever taken a knee in a fight. touch wood, that's not going to happen again. I'll find a bit of wood after this because I'm not superstitious, but now that I'm like, yeah.
So, like that weight cut, how do you get through the fight? Like, is it just adrenaline that gets you through?
Well, yeah.
Like, don't you just feel like shit?
Oh, yeah, you feel super heavy. And even like now looking the last couple of fights, like I said, I used to think I was doing the right thing, but now that I've got a nutritionist on board, there's definitely even things that you can be eating to make yourself feel better. Like anytime that you're cutting weight, depleting your body, yeah, you've got to be making sure you fuel yourself properly. So I'm actually really excited for this next one. Like I'm actually eating more food now than I normally have, and I'm dropping, like I'm walking around, lighter than I have previously because I played around with my diet at the end of last year and watched that the game change. I went vegan. I went vegan, which was all super cool because I was like being creative, and then I was like up until Christmas, and then Christmas happened, so then I was like enjoy Christmas, which is just a whole lot of food, but going from vegan to Christmas food. And then I went back to what my normal diet would be, but my body just didn't react to it well at all. And I've just been carrying like extra weight on me all year. So to be actually walking around like, you know, feeling strong and fit and be eating more food than normal, I feel great.
So many people.
Oh man.
They're like, obviously own a gym, and so many of our members come in and like, oh, I'm going vegan. I'm like, why? I watch Game Changers.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, especially as an athlete, it'd be so hard just to go vegan, I think.
Yeah.
Like the amount of training that you do.
I think you have to be, like I felt great on it. And my body was, I felt really good. In saying that though, the one area that I did notice the difference was when I was doing my strength and conditioning, my heavy lifts, especially, you know, like I trap bar deadlift 130 kilos and I was really struggling, like, you know, pushing any of those out and that. So
yeah, I had a couple of footy mates that the exact same thing. Yeah. They watched Game Changers.
Yeah.
And they, after a while, their strength trainer went to shit.
Yeah. So, and then, going back to I don't have a lot of dairy, like I'll eat cheeses and yogurt, but I don't have milk and stuff like that. But even just going back to eating like meats, I don't eat a lot of red meat, so it's chicken and fish, but just, so I eat clean. But even those few changes, I carried, extra weight, and I was still training hard. So just a little reminder not to do that again.
Game Changers.
Yeah, it was a game changer.
It was a game changer. So you just mentioned you got a head knock, took a knee. Does that worry you a bit? Like taking a lot of knocks over time, like especially if after that Concussion movie came out and all the new studies, NFL, now they're bringing it into contact sports over in Australia. Does that stuff worry you at all down the track?
Yes and no. Like, it's not something that I think about, and this is another thing that, like, obviously what I do is a very dangerous sport, and things have happened. You know, unfortunately, you know, people have died, even cutting weight and obviously fighting, and then afterwards. But it's like a race car driver. They don't get into a car and think about crashing the car and dying every time. It's just, obviously a risk in the sport. There's a risk of you crossing the road. You can get hit by a car, but you don't live life like that. I do, as much as I can, my style of fighting is hit and don't be hit. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't like getting hit. I will cop a hit though, but it's not my style. Like, I mean, especially for the judges, there's no point in standing there and you're going toe to toe and leaving a question mark in the judge's eyes. You hit someone, then you move so that you score that point. But I do, like, for the most part, we have to do medicals, so MRIs and scans and everything. I've got to see a cardiologist, an ophthalmologist for my eyes, and we see neurologists, everything before each fight. So I get all these medicals done, and it's a good little chunk of money to have to go to, and it's annoying and everything like that. But I sort of look at it and think, well, like I said before, I'm a mother of 2 kids, and I want to come home to the kids, and I also want to have a long life with them and see my grandkids grow up. So, I've got, MRIs done that I've had done over the years. So that way, obviously, when I get the next ones done, if there is a change, it's something that, they can monitor and keep an eye on.
Have they, since you first started fighting, have you seen a massive change in that? Like no, it's still the same sort of protocols? Yeah,
I do notice that sometimes, like especially in America, like California's really strict on their fight. Like they have like, they get these dodgy neurologist forms that you got to fill out. Like the neurologist doesn't really look at, but when you get there, you've got to do all these little testings, like balance on one leg and all these like crazy things. But or like remember 10 numbers, like random numbers, and then you got to recite them back, or like just all these little testings. And I'm sitting there and I'm like really concentrating, making sure that I smash it, which I did. And then I walked out and the other fighter's like, oh, you should have just done a real baseline, because now if you don't get that top level, next time you go over, they'll be thinking there's something wrong. So you're trying to average. Yeah. So you just stay at average rather than, excelling at the beginning, and then next time you might be a bit off and, they would red flag you. And I was like, oh, why didn't you tell me that before?
Cheating the baseline.
Yeah.
When I was playing footy, that concussion test started coming in. I remember we had to do this baseline test.
Yeah.
And everyone sort of worked out a little way around it, like you just said, so you can get back out there.
Yeah.
So what at the end of your MMA fighting career, like what are you looking to do? You mentioned like mentoring, you've done a bit of motivational speaking, and so what's the goal after fight life?
After fight, well, it's funny because like I'm 37 now, and I was like, all right, a few more fights, but now I'm like, maybe a few more fights, and then my partner and I are going to have a baby, so that's got to be thrown in. But I'm like, I'd really like
in the works.
And then I'd like to come back within 6 months of having that, just as a little goal. That's another little personal goal. So whether it be however old I am, but you look at like Yoel Romero, he's 42. Alistair Overeem's 40. So like, and you know what, female athletes, like our bodies hold up better than the males. So I'd like to think I got a fair few more years of fighting in me. Mainly too because I started like older. I was 26, so I know that the passion will still be there before my body is ready to quit. Usually it's the other way around, that the passion might have gone, and that's sort of what most people retire from. But after fighting and that's one of the things, like these last 6 months I've really been building up, and I want to build my brand. But I was lucky, so I sort of touched base before with like, I found my passion, and that's what helped me out of a really rough stage of my life. And then through that passion, I changed my whole life. So I want to do the same thing for other people, like help them through stages, either people that have gone through shit things, help guide them through, like mentoring, or even like younger people, like, well, even more so, even younger than that. Like I've got a kids class, I teach kids from 4 to 10 years old, and I feel like I remember when I was sitting, your primary school teacher, how much of an impact they have at, like, kids are sponges. So if I can get in there and I teach them little things, like even simple things, like I've got to put the hand sanitizer on all of them, and I make sure that they all say thank you, and I keep on their case. It's like, you know what, there's no such thing as saying thank you too many times to someone. You show someone gratitude. If someone does anything for you, it doesn't matter how small of a thing it is, be a grateful person, because, and then, so little things like that, or, I teach them, they meditate after class, and just all, little lessons about, striving to be their best and this and that. So if you can get them at an early age, hopefully that carries through to their teenage years and then the adult life, and then, teenagers at the moment who are possibly potentially going off the rails, where I was headed. Getting in. I've actually got a mentoring a young girl after this for 2 hours who's potentially going off the track. But her hopefully listening to my story might put it back on the tracks, and she can do whatever she wants to do in life.
That's good, eh? That's giving back a bit as well.
Well, for sure.
Yeah.
Through my through my passion, I found my purpose, which I think, it's rewarding for me. It's cool too, because for me to sit here, like, it's still a big thing, because I'm still me, and I forget that, like, I've done all this in sport, but, people come up to me like, oh, we follow you on social media, like a big fan, and it's still, like, it hits me because I'm just like, I'm still me, like, and I'll always be like that. But the fact that people want to sit here, and that, people who will listen to this podcast, or people want to come and, far out when I sign an autograph or something, like that just spins me out, and I don't know if I'll ever get used to it. But the fact that someone like me, who's like fucked up a fair few times in life, can mentor somebody, like, that's just weird. Like, that I've got a story and can help people. That's, it's cool. It's, I put my head down over night time and feel good.
It's good. Like, even you mentioned before, like, looking back what you've done in the past 10 years and then 10 years before that, it's unreal. Any advice you'd give to someone that was in your situation back in the day? Like, what would your be advice to them? Like, what would help them get out of that?
Oh, keep it on the table. One of the things I often say is just to make smart choices. Like it's easy to sort of act in the now and make hasty decisions based on like how you're feeling right now, and this can carry on to relationships or your personal life, even careers. But like it's just sometimes it's good, just take a step back and think of the bigger picture. Like I wish I had have done, and it's a bit of a. I wish I had have done a lot of things differently, but in saying that, I'm also glad that I guess things went the way that they did, because if you change one small thing in your life, then you don't necessarily end up being here in this spot. So I'm grateful for all the lessons. I'm grateful that I was able to look at the negative things and find the lesson in them. I think a lot of people go wrong with, finding excuses or blaming other people, or, a big turning point in my life, and it only has really happened in the last few years, was really taking ownership of those mistakes, rather than thinking that because certain things might have happened in my early childhood, feeling like the world owed me for this because of that happened, or this happened, or blaming other people, instead of sometimes even taking ownership for it and it not necessarily being your fault. But if you just take ownership, then you can kind of put closure on it and move forward from there. And just realizing too, at any age, I was 26, that's a pretty late age to become an athlete, and
especially fighting as well.
Yeah.
So many skills involved in that.
Well, that's what I even had the conversation with my daughter the other day. So my son's 12 at the moment, and he's next year goes into youth league soccer. So he's been in a SAP development program for the last 3 years. But in this last 2 weeks, I've had coaches from all over Sydney. I've had 2 A-League squads call interest in him, and I'm on and off the phone and I'm having conversations with these coaches like I'm talking about an adult, and I get off the phone, I'm like, he's a 12-year-old boy. But then as I said to her, these professional sports, tennis, golf, they all start from 4 years old, and they develop them through to being the superstars that they are. And then I sort of joke with her, I'm like, I guess not everyone can be 26 and start a... that was a bit of a thing that, credit to me to be able to do that. But again, it's one of those things at any age, even if I was 37, there's no reason that I haven't lived, if I had lived 37 years of being, making shitty decisions, isn't that I can't then turn it around. There's no...
It's never too late.
No, that's it. And it really isn't. And the same thing with relationships. I've got a few of my girlfriends / clients that have, had failed relationships, and she's like, one of them said the other day, oh, what if I'm, by myself forever? I'm like, you can find love at 70. There's no, just because you're, 40 doesn't mean that you won't find love. It's better to be, by yourself than in a relationship that's not for you. So, I just feel that's one of the things to, make smart choices and think of the future. But then in saying that, it's also not the be-all and end-all if you didn't make those smart choices.
Where did you learn... Because we're pretty big on that here, trying to teach people not to be a victim and be a victim mentality.
Yeah.
So like you said, even if you think it's not your fault, but if you can find a way to go, all right, I can make it better by doing this. Where'd you learn that?
It's a mindset I've had, but I've actually also just recently read it in Ant Middleton's book. He's a Secret Service guy that worked in the Secret Service for years, but he ended up climbing... Mount Everest, and it was a story going through that, but he would refer back to this victim mindset, and people who think that the world owe them because something's happened, and that's just their excuse. They're sort of ticket out of taking ownership and playing that victim mindset. But
what was his name?
Ant Middleton.
Ant Middleton.
Yeah, he's got it was the second book I read. I haven't read his first one yet, but I read it on the flight to America. And it was good because it's true. A lot of people do have that victim mindset.
Heaps of people.
Yeah.
Most people have it, I think. But you don't realise you have it. It's just because you say heaps of people are conditioned, and it just it's raining today, I'm not going to train. That's sort of in that mindset. Well, but it's raining. Well, who cares?
It's also if you girls kind of get I said, if you've got a group of girlfriends and they're they're the yes people. So if you have your little whinge to them and they're like, it's all right, babe, and they all make themselves feel good about it, instead of you hang around the right people and you try and have that mindset, they'd be like, suck it up, get out there, go for it. So it's definitely one of the turning points for me was definitely who I associated with, and the types of people that I have around me too, the go-getters and people that inspire me and motivate me, and then then I hopefully, do the same thing for other people.
Yeah, so I was actually reading something, I think it was yesterday, I was reading someone posted up, it's like, if you hang around 5 millionaires, you'll be the 6.
Yeah, I posted that one.
Oh, was that you? Oh, there you go. I was doing a stalk on your page.
I made an Instagram story, but yeah, when I see good stuff like that, it's true though, because don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean go ditch your friends that are.
No.
I've still got friends that aren't, but I definitely love hanging around people that, and I'll have it from the athletes. Actually, it was years ago. I'm sure that Linda will listen to this. Years ago, before I moved to Sydney, it was when I first started my professional career. So back in 2012, I was a PA for a photographer in Tari, and she was just the biggest business brain I've ever met. Like, she's the most inspiring person I'd ever hung around. And obviously, coming from my life before and stuff, I didn't really get to rub shoulders with. Yeah, but she was just an awesome person to be around. But then she would get that same feeling off me in the physical side. So I'd always motivate her to go and train and eat healthy and this and that. Whereas she just made me think outside of the fact that I was a professional fighter. Like, there's a whole lot of marketing and bits and pieces. And in saying that, I have been still lazy about it. But yeah, it's just a bigger thing of building your brand and just more to it than just fighting. So yeah, she was probably my first inspirational person that I rubbed shoulders with, and she was definitely a changer in that positive person that I needed at that time too.
So you want to be around people that pull you up, not pull you down, What is the hardest thing about being a professional fighter? Would you say it's the mental aspect or the physical aspect? What do you find most difficult? Like when you're going, I'm sure there'd be plenty of emotions, up, downs.
Yeah.
Like, what do you find the most difficult to stay on top of?
Wow, I must be really in a good mindset right now because I can't even answer that question. Yeah,
too easy for you.
No. Believe me, it's not easy. But I don't look at anything in life as too hard. Like, I just do it.
Do you feel like you've been through some really hard spots?
Oh, for sure. And this is don't get me wrong. Like, some mornings it's struggle to get up. Like, I'm super busy. If you listen to my schedule from 6 a.m. this morning, it has been non-stop to even getting to here. And then as soon as I leave here, and I love those days. And some days it's just want to do nothing. But then and my partner's good for the sense too. He constantly reminds me that this is the life that I've built. Like, I don't work a 9 to 5 as such job, in the same office, the same place. Like, I've built this where I get to coach people, I get to mentor people, I get to come and do these sorts of things and people want to listen. Like, it's, so it's not that I find it hard. Sometimes it's just, I guess you get tired. And this will be one of the topics so the young girl that I'm mentoring next, she's starting to WAG school. So truancy's, getting pretty high. And obviously, most kids say they don't like school. And we all said it back when we were at school. But you ask any adult now and they will say the best years of your life are at school because you're at school, you're with your mates. Like, you got to, it beats working and stuff. But when you look at it, and what I'll say to her too is, like, this life that I've built right now is what I've built. Back when I used to work a 9 to 5 job, I'm like, I can't wait for the days for me. I'm doing this and, training 3 times a day and this and that. I've got all that now. I've got exactly what I've hoped for, but I still sometimes in the wrong mindset will go, oh, this sucks. Like, I wish I was doing this. But even if I had the life where I was holidaying in Thailand all the time, I'd probably be sick of that too and be like, oh, I wish I had, you're always wanting something else. So you just have to learn to appreciate what you've got, whether it be good or bad, because someone's always wishing to have what you've got. In the end, people are never really happy. So,
you mentioned meditation before. Like, is that something that you're pretty big on? Like, say being catching yourself there, just being grateful for what you've got and what you built. Yeah. Do you work on that a bit?
I've worked on, So these last 3 years have been a huge, the mental side of it's the big part. And it's just sometimes just clearing your head. Like, if you look at any given day, 2 days, nothing will change between the 2 days except for how you mentally approach it. And it can be you can either wake up and think the day's awesome and great because you've got that mindset, but then you might wake up and your mindset's bad and all you do is focus on all the negative things of the day. So I realised that the mental side of it is a big part, and sometimes just clearing your head. So meditation is a big thing. This fight camp itself, I meditate twice a day because I work on stuff that the sports psychologist is getting me to work on. But I like the kids to do it too because there's so much going on in their head. and that sometimes there's nothing going on in the head, but sometimes
I can relate.
Like for me, I do the meditating with them too, because it's hard to make kids sit down and close their eyes because they just don't want to do it. Like, so I'm big on discipline in the kids class, in a sense that if I sit there and tell them to sit down with their eyes closed for 5 minutes, that's what they do because I'm their coach. And just like if their parent told them to do it, or if their teacher, like, discipline's a big thing. And I think at the moment it's not that big of a thing with a big focus. Like, discipline was big when we were younger. Like, the idea of getting sent to the principal's office, oh my God, that was scary. Whereas kids these days, they're not really, they don't really care.
That's
it's not that
true.
scary.
They got like got too many rights if you say that. The kids say it's like.
So, I'll quite often send a kid to the naughty corner in the kids class and stuff. The parents will all be out there watching it. And for the most part, I've never had any complaints. They can see, like, I'm a good instructor, and I'm doing it because,
coming from a good place,
like
trying to learn respect and discipline. Yeah.
But the meditating too, obviously, like yesterday we only had a minute left, so I got them to sit there and meditate. But it was just to calm them down because I've had some free time at the end of the class, and I sent them out to their parents, and they're all like wired.
So, I would have done that. Cop that, parents.
After the minute's meditation, we gave them all a chocolate frog each. So
we had a bag of red lollies. I was banned from them, actually, the red lollies.
But yeah, no. So just your mindset, and sometimes you just need to clear your mind and just stop and pause for a little bit, and just.
Is there a way you start the day? Like, do you start with like most people start the meditation or end?
It depends on what it is.
I
try so journaling's another thing. So I've got this book that I was sent. So like I like to journal in the sense where I just write what I've got to do, how I'm feeling, like how training's been going, this and that. But I actually just got this book sent to me, and it's all written out. So at the top you'll put you've got your goals, and then like things that you're grateful for, and then
is that best? It's called best something.
The routine.
Oh, the routine.
Yeah. So it was good because it makes it, and then it's like your diet, and then how many liters of water you plan on drinking, and then at the end of the day you do like a bit of a recap. What was good about today and this and that. But it just makes you more aware because sometimes when you're busy you don't ask those questions, and it's something simple like which I'm trying to get the kids to do it too, even before bed. Because sometimes it really is easy just to focus on all the shit things in life, especially with COVID and everything that's going on at the moment. There's a lot of people, like I said, businesses, stressing financially, this and that. But just to lay down of a night time before bed and think of 5 things you're grateful for. And it will be, the fact that you're laying, I've got 1,000 things that I'm grateful, but just it's as simple things as simply saying you've got a house over your head, food on the table, family that's healthy. A job, all these things that people normally just take for granted, but actually by saying it out loud and acknowledging it, you realise that, there are things to be grateful for.
So that self-talk, I've heard that, I think it was a Tim Ferriss podcast a couple of years ago, and we just opened this joint, and it's a bit of a stressful time. Obviously, you got a lot on your plate, you want to be successful, and he talked about that, and I'm pretty sure it was him. They sit around him with his kids. I don't know. I'm not sure if it was him, actually, because I'm not sure if he's got kids. But they actually sit at the dinner table and they go, all right, what are you grateful for? What are you grateful for? And they go around. I was like, that's so cool, like, especially teaching the young kids.
Yeah, I did that in the kids' class. So we all have to sit before we start. And I'll be, how was school today? Like, did you learn anything? And they'll be like, oh, no. And just having a general chat, because I want them to look up to me and respect me. And you got to have that relationship. So then when you start wanting to like teach them the more important things, they do listen to you. Otherwise, if you don't build that rapport, then I just think it goes one ear out the other.
I remember some of my coaches from when I was a kid. Like one of my mates' dads, he pops out of my head, and he was like that. Like he knew how to have fun, but we respect him. We were only little, like 7, 8 years old, but I still remember him telling us stuff to this day.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I want, because that's what I was saying before. You remember the people that stood out in your life as a kid, and I want to be one of those people. And in 10 years' time, I've like I said, I've got 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds. 20 years' time, I'd love for them. Imagine them like getting back to me and be like, because you said this to me, oh man, I think I'd just cry. But I'll often, we all sit in the beginning and, ask them about their days and stuff, and I'll sit there and be like, all right, tell me something you're grateful for. And it's super cute because they'll be like, I'm grateful for my mum. And then the other one will be like, I'm grateful for my dad. I'm like, okay, not mum and dad. Or like, I'm grateful for food. And then like, it's really cute to see from a kid's point of view, but it's just asking those questions. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's about a wrap, Arlene.
I told you I could chat.
That was good. It went an hour. That was really good, but like, Jamie told me a little bit about your story,
Yeah.
and like you truly are an inspiration. Like from what you've done and what you've achieved already.
Yeah.
And I hope you kick Cyborg's ass and bring
Thank
the
you.
title home. But I really appreciate your time. Like you said, you got a busy schedule, but first female lady to jump on.
Put that on my resume.
Yeah,
too.
put that on your resume. I know, like a lot of. I was speaking to a couple of girls, like just in the gym, and some of your mates and that, and they're pumped to listen to your story.
Yeah, cool.
So you'll definitely inspire a lot of people, and you'll continue to do
Yeah.
that. And good luck with everything in the future. And like I said, really grateful you jumped. There's my grateful thing for today.
There
You
go.
jumped on. Thanks again.
Awesome. No worries. Thank you.